Greetings, everyone. Jim Walker here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And welcome to this. This is the first in a series of short videos I'll be presenting dealing with chord voicings. I'll be playing on vibraphone to demonstrate these because that's the instrument I play, and also using a chord progression which is fairly common in jazz, but please don't think that what we're going to deal with is limited to jazz or limited to the vibraphone. Any kind of music, any situation where you are dealing with chords, whether you play guitar, piano, vibraphone, whatever kind of music, maybe you're writing for an ensemble, you have a horn section in your band, or you are doing your own productions, you're writing for virtual instruments and you're voicing a string section or woodwinds or any chordal production in an ensemble. The techniques and methods we're going to discuss in the following videos can apply to what you're doing, and in terms of creating some variety and some more interest in the way you are treating chords. Now, when I first conceived of these videos, I didn't plan on the one that you're going to start with right now, which is this introductory video. But I realized I was kind of starting in the middle of the story and leaving out some information. And while there's only so far back you can go, I didn't want to leave people hanging if they are new to this and don't have much experience with chords. So this is what the first lesson, the one that will follow my presentation now, is going to deal with. Just a very quick thumbnail, getting off the ground introduction to how I'm creating the chords that I'm going to be using to illustrate my concepts in the following videos. Think of it this way. It's like when you buy a new piece of electronic gear, whether it's a camera, a phone, anything, you get the owner's manual, which might be 80 pages long, and you need an advanced degree in calculus to get through the thing. But you'll also get this little postcard sized thing called the Quick Start Guide, or words to that effect, which has minimal information, maybe 3 or 4 steps, but it's enough to get you off the ground. It's leaving out a lot of details, but it's enough to get the process going. That's what this first video is going to be. I'm going to talk about where these chords come from that I'm playing. So I think that level of understanding will help what's going on as we move forward and help my viewers to understand what I'm talking about in the succeeding videos. So with that, we will head over to the vibraphone, and thank you again for your attention. We'll get to the vibes in just a minute. All right, so moving forward on this, we're going to build up some chords right now. We're going to build up the chords that we're going to be using for the remaining videos in this. And our starting point is going to be the major scale. And I'm not going to take the time to describe and define the major scale. If you're at a stage, as dear viewer, you don't know your major scales, what we're doing today might be a little bit advanced for you, but there's 1,000 places online that you can look up major scales. There's websites, there's PDFs you can download, books you can view. So I highly encourage you to do that. We're going to start, though, with, you might be able to hang with it just fine, though, because we're going to use the easiest major scale to visualize, which is the C major scale. It's a scale that's all and only the white keys on a piano or the lower manual of bars on a vibraphone. And if I play starting on the note C, up to C and back down, you get your C major scale. Now we're going to build this into chords or derive chords from this by using an interval known as a third, which is, intervals are the spacings between any two particular notes, whether they're played one at a time or together. That spacing defines the distance, the change from one note to the next. And if I go from C to D, that's a second. C, D, 2 notes, two notes, 2 letters. If I go C, D, E, the note I started on, the note I arrived at, C and E, that interval is a third. I've skipped over a note to get to it. So whether I play them together or individually, melodically, that interval is known as a third. We're going to build that up again, starting on the E. We get the G above that. So if I stack these 2 thirds one on top of the other, I get a C chord, specifically a C major triad, triad meaning 3 notes. And I can, that's basically how we build chords. There are other ways to build chords, but for our purposes, that's what we're going to start with. Now, two things to keep in mind with that. Two next steps which can be taken in either order. The next is staying within C major, the notes of the C major scale. I can start on any note of that scale and build up a chord off of that note. If I start on D, the second note of the scale, D, E, F, G, A, that's going to be a D minor chord. If I start on E, on F, G, A, B, and eventually I'm back at C. So eventually you use all of these chords. For the examples in the videos to follow, we're going to focus on three of these chords. We're going to focus on the 2 chord, which is the chord built off of the second scale degree, D, the 5 chord, which is a note built off of the 5th scale note G, and the 1 chord built off of the root or the first note of the scale, C. So that's going to be our root movement, our progression, 2, 5, 1. But there's one additional step. We stacked 2/3 on top of each other. We're going to do that one more time for each of these chords. We're going to add a note a third above the previous top note. So now we're adding a B above the G. So our C chord, instead of 3 notes, is 4. And this is known as a C major 7th chord because this note here is the interval of a 7th above that C. If I build, again, another third on top of the D chord, our top note was an A, we're going to add a C, D minor 7th. Same reason this is called the 7th. And the G chord, we're going to add one more third, G, B, D, F. We get a G, it's called a dominant 7th chord. Major, minor, dominant, don't worry too much about those labels at this point. It's more about just getting the notes under your mallets, under your fingers, writing them down if you're arranging for a group of vocalists or a group of horn players. But this will give us our basic chord progression. The 2 chord, D minor, the 5 chord, G dominant 7th, going to the 1 chord, C. Now, you notice as I play that, it's a very angular movement from one chord to the next. I start here on the D chord, big jump up to the G chord, and a big jump back down to the C chord. Next step we're going to take is to employ what's known as smooth voice leading, which is to get from the notes of one chord to the notes of the next chord as smoothly as possible with as minimal movement up and down. And one thing to keep in mind is I play this D minor chord, as long as I have a D, an F, an A, and a C, I can move those notes different octaves. I will still have a D minor chord. I could take this F, replace it with this F, and this is still a D minor 7th chord. I could change the F and the C. I could put this C up top here. D, F, A, C, still a D minor 7th chord. So you can move the notes of a chord around and still have the same chord. We're not going to go that wide of a spread at this point, but we're going to employ that idea. So as we're going to go from the D minor chord to the G7 chord, then to the C major chord, and at each step we're going to do 2 things. The first, keeping in mind the notes I'm going to, G, B, D, and F, that's my next chord. Am I playing any of those notes already in the first of the 2 chords? Yes, I am. I have D and F right here. They're in a different octave, but I have D and F, so I'm going to leave those right there. They're not going to move. I need a G and a B, so I'm going to replace these 2 notes, A and C, which are part of the D chord. A lot of math here going on, I know, down to the G and the B. So now I have the notes of a G dominant 7th chord. They're rearranged. They're no longer arranged like this, but I still have G, B, D, F. So now instead of going from here to here, I'm going from here to here. And the same thing going from the G chord, this new voicing, to the C major 7th chord. C, E, G, and B are the notes I need. I have G and B right here. They stay right where they are. I need a C, I need an E, so these 2 notes will be replaced by these 2 notes. This is my G7 chord, change 2 notes, now I'm at a C major 7th chord. So now instead of this motion, And there's nothing wrong with it. If you like the way that sounds, play it that way. It's not incorrect, but you also want to be able to do this more smoothly. So we're going to, instead of this, we're going to go. So smoother voice leading, getting this as we go through it. It's easier technically, and it sounds, I keep using that same word, it sounds smoother musically, which is the more important thing. So this chord progression and this set of voicings, that's going to be our starting point for the next couple of videos. I know I went real fast through this. I left out a lot of details. This is just that quick start set of instructions. If I've left any of you hanging, please hit me up in the comments section. If you need me to elaborate on something, if there's any information that I failed to include, please let me know. I'll be happy to embellish what I've presented here. Next step, we're going to take this same chord voicing I just played, and the same way I was just moving notes around on that D minor 7th chord, we're going to do the same thing. I have a couple of specific techniques to show you on that. As I add the further videos in this series, I will add links to the description of this one. And now we enter the promotional portion of the video. You hear it on every YouTube video. Say it with me, with feeling. Like the video, subscribe to my videos if you like. And if you want to find out when the next video comes up, you want to be notified, click on that bell icon. That'll give you the notification as I add new videos to my page, whether it's for this series or other videos. So let me know if you got any questions. Thanks for your time and attention, and that'll wrap up this section. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.